The wedding hall glittered under golden lights, every table perfectly arranged, every smile rehearsed. Elena stood in her ivory gown, her fingers trembling around the bouquet. From the outside, everything looked flawless, a fairy tale ending. But inside, something felt off. As the ceremony music began, she caught the look in her groom's eyes. Adrian smiled, but it wasn't for her. His gaze flickered briefly towards someone in the crowd, a woman in a pale blue dress. Her expression calm yet unreadable. Elena didn't know her, but something in that glance made her stomach twist. For a moment, the world seemed to blur. The vows, the applause, the kisses on the cheek all performed like lines in a play. That night, as guests toasted and music filled the air, Elena danced beside Adrian. "Are you happy?" she asked softly. He hesitated for half a second, just long enough for her to notice. "Of course," he said, the words smooth but hollow. When he leaned in to kiss her, his lips were warm, but his mind felt distant. Later, when they entered the hotel suite, she sat on the edge of the bed while he checked his phone. The light from the screen reflected in his eyes a message from someone, saved only as L. He turned it face down quickly. "Work?" she asked gently. He smiled faintly. "Just a friend," she nodded, pretending not to see the shadow that crossed his face. As Adrian fell asleep beside her, Elena stared at the ceiling. The laughter from downstairs echoed faintly through the walls, the sound of a celebration she no longer believed in. Somewhere inside her, beneath the lace and promises, something cold began to bloom. She had married a man who looked at her like a stranger, and worse, she was sure he had loved someone else first. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "If she's still in his heart, then where do I belong?" The morning after the wedding felt colder than it should have. The sun came through the curtains, soft and golden, but it didn't warm Elena's chest. Adrian was already up, standing by the window in his white shirt, talking quietly on the phone. When he noticed her awake, he smiled too quickly and ended the call. "Work," he said before she could ask. She nodded, but something in the way he slipped his phone into his pocket too fast. Too guarded told her it wasn't work. Later, at breakfast, she asked, "Who was it?" "No one important," he said, his tone gentle but dismissive. The words fell like frost between them. A week later, the first card from L arrived at the house. It wasn't addressed to her, but to a elegant handwriting. Expensive paper. Inside, a single sentence. Asterisk, "You looked happy, I hope it's true." Asterisk. Elena's hands trembled as she read it. When she showed it to Adrian, his face went pale. "She must have heard about the wedding," he said quickly, taking it from her. "It's nothing." But his fingers lingered on the note, tracing the letters like they were familiar. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She watched him lying next to her, his breathing slow, his face peaceful yet even in his dreams. She felt a distance she couldn't cross. The next morning, she went to the post box herself. Another envelope sat waiting, her name on the front. Inside was a photo, Adrian and a woman, the same one from the wedding, standing close in front of a lake. Her smile was soft, his gaze unmistakably full of love. The note below read, asterisk, "You deserve the truth before the vows." Asterisk. Elena sat on the floor, the letter trembling in her hands. For a long time, she couldn't cry. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "He married me." But his heart never did. Elena didn't confront him right away. Instead, she waited, watching, listening, collecting the tiny cracks in his words. Each night he came home later, smelling a perfume that wasn't hers. His excuses were soft and believable, but his eyes betrayed him every time. One evening, she found him sitting alone in the living room, staring at that same photograph, the one with the woman by the lake. "Who is she, Adrian?" she asked quietly. He froze, the color draining from his face. "No one." "Don't start this again." "Then why does she write to you?" He looked away. "You wouldn't understand." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Elena took the photo from his hands and said, "I understand enough." She walked to the fireplace and dropped it in. The edges curled, the faces disappearing into ash. "You can burn the picture," he said bitterly, "but not the past. Then maybe you should have left it there," she replied. He said, voice raised now. "You don't know what she meant to me." "No," Elena said softly. "But I know what you meant to me, and that's the difference." He looked at her then, not with anger, but guilt. "I thought I could love you enough to forget her, and did you?" she asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "I don't know." That night, Elena packed a small bag. She didn't leave yet, not physically, but something inside her did. As she lay awake beside him, she realized the most painful kind of betrayal isn't when someone lies to you. It's when they stay, but their heart already left. Days turned into weeks, and the house grew heavier with silence. Adrian's presence became routine like furniture, there but lifeless. Elena no longer asked where he went or why he stayed out late. She already knew the answers. One night, while he showered, she opened the drawer where he kept his watch and found a letter. The handwriting was unmistakable. Her chest tightened as she read. Asterisk, "I didn't mean to ruin your peace, but pretending hurts us both. You can't build forever on a goodbye." Asterisk. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. When Adrian came out, towel around his shoulders, she handed him the letter. "How long have you been lying to me?" she asked. He froze, then looked away. "It's complicated." "No, it's simple," she said. "You married me to forget her, but I can't live as your remedy." "Elena, please, did you love her?" He hesitated only for a second, but it was enough. "Yes," he whispered, "I did. Maybe I still do." The sound of it shattered something deep inside her, not because she didn't expect it, but because hearing it made it real. She took off her ring and placed it on the table. "Then love her all you want, Adrian. But do it honestly. Don't bury me in the same grave." He stepped forward, desperate, but she moved back. "You chose her once. You chose her again tonight." "One choose myself." She turned away before her tears could betray her strength. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She sat by the window watching the city lights fade into dawn, realizing that the end of a marriage doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it ends in quiet truth, whispered between two people who finally stop pretending. Elena moved into a small apartment downtown, the kind with too many stairs and not enough light, but it was hers. The first few days were quiet, painfully so. She had no one to cook for, no footsteps to listen for, no ring to twist on her finger when she couldn't sleep. Yet somehow the silence felt honest. She started painting again, something she'd given up after marrying Adrian. Each brushstroke felt like a breath she hadn't taken in years. One afternoon, while cleaning, she found a box of wedding photos. She almost threw them away, but one caught her eye, the one where Adrian wasn't looking at her but at the woman in blue. She stared at it for a long moment, then placed it in a drawer. Not out of denial, but because she no longer needed proof. That night, she got a message from an unknown number. Asterisk, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought he told you the truth." Asterisk, no name, but she didn't need one. Elena typed a reply, then erased it. Instead, she sent one simple line. Asterisk, "He taught me what love isn't. You taught me what truth costs." Asterisk. She blocked the number and closed her phone. For the first time, she didn't cry. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, brighter than before. She brewed coffee, painted until noon, and smiled when the radio played the song from their wedding. It no longer hurt. She whispered to herself, "He married me, but I'm the one learning to love again." Outside, the city hummed with life, and Elena stepped out into it not as someone's wife or someone's replacement, but as herself, finally whole. Weeks passed, but healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings, Elena woke up light and free. Other days, the memory of his voice still echoed like an unfinished song. She had deleted their photos, returned her ring, even repainted the walls, yet sometimes, while walking through the city, she caught herself searching for his face in strangers. One rainy afternoon, she received a message from Mark, a mutual friend. Asterisk, he asked about you. He said he hopes you're okay. Asterisk, Elena stared at the screen, her heart steady for the first time. She didn't reply. Instead, she opened her window and watched the rain streak down the glass each drop. A reminder that even storms pass. The next day, she visited a small art gallery, curious about a local exhibition called Asterisk Healing in Color. Asterisk. The walls were covered with paintings of broken hearts turned into blooming gardens. One painting stopped her cold, a lake, blue and calm, surrounded by flowers. Beneath it, the artist's name, Asterisk Lydia Harper, Asterisk the woman in blue, the woman Adrian once loved. Elena stood there for a long time, her breath shallow but calm. The painting wasn't bitter or mournful, it was peaceful. The brushstrokes told a story of release, not regret. A quiet understanding formed in her chest. They had both suffered under the same illusion that love could be controlled, possessed, repaired by promises. That night, she wrote a letter she never sent. Asterisk, I forgive you, both of you. You taught me that love isn't about being chosen, it's about choosing yourself when no one else does. Asterisk. She folded it neatly and placed it inside her journal. The next morning, she took her finished painting, a sunrise over water, to the same gallery and submitted it anonymously. The curator smiled. It's beautiful. What's it called? Elena smiled softly. Closure. For the first time since her wedding, the word felt real. A month later, Elena's painting Closure was displayed in the gallery window. She hadn't told anyone it was hers, but somehow the universe did. People stopped to look. Some smiled, some lingered. One afternoon, as she was passing by, she saw a familiar figure standing in front of it, Adrian. He looked older, or maybe just tired. Their eyes met through the glass, and for a moment, time folded in on itself. He walked inside. She followed. It's yours, isn't it? He asked quietly, staring at the sunrise she had painted. Yes, she said. It's what I needed to paint. He nodded slowly. It's beautiful. So was what we had, she replied. But beauty doesn't always last. He exhaled, guilt and nostalgia flickering in his eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. You did anyway, she said gently. But I'm not angry anymore. You forgave me. He asked. No, she said after a pause. I forgave myself for believing love meant losing who I was. Adrian looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. You've changed. She smiled faintly. I finally started listening to myself instead of waiting for someone else to hear. Emmy, they stood in silence. Two people once tied together by promises, now separated by peace. Before leaving, he turned back. I hope you find someone who truly deserves your heart. Elena shook her head. I already did me. When he walked out of the gallery, she didn't watch him go. She turned back to her painting, sunlight glinting off the glass. It was the same light she had once chased through someone else's eyes, and now it was hers. Months passed, and Elena's name quietly started to mean something in the local art world. Closure became more than a painting, it became a symbol. People would stand in front of it, whispering about heartbreak and healing, about how the colors somehow felt alive. One evening, during a small exhibition, a woman approached her, Lydia Harper, the woman in blue. Her hair was shorter now, her face older, but her eyes carried the same calm Elena remembered from that photograph. I saw your painting, Lydia said softly. I knew it was you. Elena turned to her, unsure what to say. Lydia smiled faintly. I came to thank you. For what? Elena asked, her voice steady but curious. For setting him free. For setting me free too. The words hung between them like fragile glass. He used to talk about you, Lydia continued. After the wedding, he told me he made the biggest mistake of his life not marrying you, but pretending he was ready to love anyone at all. Elena looked down. We both tried to love a ghost. Lydia nodded. Maybe we both needed to lose him to find ourselves. They stood in silence, surrounded by paintings that glowed under soft light. Do you ever think about him? Lydia asked finally. Sometimes, Elena admitted, but only as a chapter, not the story. Lydia smiled a small, genuine smile that felt like closure for them both. Before leaving, she said, "You're stronger than I was." "No," Elena replied. Just later, when Lydia walked away, Elena didn't feel anger, or jealousy, or regret. She felt peace, the kind that comes when you stop asking why and start being grateful that it happened at all. That night, she painted again. Not pain, not loss, but light. The brush moved freely, colors blending like breath. And as she signed her name at the bottom, she realized something. Sometimes love's greatest gift is the strength it leaves behind. Elena's life began to settle into something new, not perfect, but peaceful. Her mornings smelled of coffee and paint. Her nights filled with soft music and the sound of her own laughter echoing off the walls. She had learned to love her solitude, to treat it not as emptiness but as space for growth. One day, while preparing for another exhibition, she received a letter handwritten, no return address. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Adrian. Asterisk, I saw your work everywhere. I'm proud of you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you found the happiness I couldn't give. Asterisk for a moment. She just stared at the words. There was no pain, no anger, only a quiet gratitude. She folded the letter and slipped it between the pages of her journal. Not as a wound, but as a memory. That night, during her exhibition's opening, the gallery was full of laughter, conversation, the faint smell of wine, and new beginnings. Reporters asked about her inspiration, and she simply said, "Heartbreak teaches you how to see color differently." In the crowd, she saw a familiar face, Lydia again, smiling, standing beside a young man who looked at her with warmth. Elena smiled back. They didn't need to speak. Some stories end better in silence. Later that night, she walked home through the quiet streets. The city lights shimmered on wet pavement, reflecting her own soft glow. She passed by a couple holding hands, a mother with her child, a man alone at a cafe, fragments of love in all its imperfect forms. For the first time, she didn't envy them. She understood love wasn't about possession, but presence, being able to stay even when everything changes. When she reached her apartment, she stood by the window, watching the stars. "He married me," she whispered, smiling faintly. "But I learned to love myself." The city hummed below, a heartbeat that matched her own. And for the first time, Elena didn't feel like the woman left behind. She felt like the woman who finally came home. The following spring, Elena's life had grown quietly beautiful. Her days began with sunrise, a cup of coffee, and the smell of fresh paint. The pain that once consumed her now existed only as a soft echo, reminder of who she had been and how far she had come. Her latest exhibition was titled Asterisk Becoming. Asterisk, every painting told a story of transformation from love to loss, from loss to freedom. The final piece was a mirror framed in gold, with the words etched above it, "Asterisk, the woman I became." Asterisk on opening night. The gallery was crowded, but Elena stood calmly among them. She didn't need applause. She had already found peace. People admired the mirror, taking pictures beside it, but one woman stood silently before it, tears in her eyes. "It's like she knows my story," the woman whispered. Elena smiled softly and said, "Maybe she does." Later that night, when the gallery emptied, she stood alone before that mirror. For the first time, she didn't see the broken bride, the betrayed lover, or the woman left behind. She saw herself strong, radiant, complete. She touched the glass gently and whispered, "Thank you for every goodbye that led me here." Outside, the city was alive, laughter spilling from cafes, music floating through open windows, lights shimmering like a constellation made of second chances. Elena walked home under the streetlights, her heart light and steady. When she reached her door, she paused, turned her face toward the night sky, and smiled. Because love, she realized, wasn't what she lost with him, it was what she had finally found within herself. and as the stars reflected in her eyes. Elena knew this was her true wedding day, the day she married her freedom. If this story touched your heart, remember, sometimes love doesn't end, it transforms. Elena's journey wasn't about losing someone who couldn't love her. It was about finding the courage to love herself when no one else did. Because healing doesn't come when they say sorry, it comes when you finally stop waiting for them to. If you've ever rebuilt yourself after heartbreak, this story was for you. Tell me in the comments, would you have stayed to fix it or walked away to find yourself? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cinematic stories about love, loss, and rebirth. Because sometimes the most powerful love story is the one you live alone and survive.